milk for part of it. We are going to show you how to make what? Empanadas. So it has a beef and cheese mixture for the inside. And then we're going to use the pie crust that you practiced hopefully from our first video and making the Pop-Tarts, and try pie crust again for the outside on these. So your recipe might is going to look a little bit different size-wise. We buy beef every year, and our packages of ground beef come in 1.5 pounds, and so I chose to scale this recipe up from what your recipe is going to show when you look at that. You don't need all of this mixture, what I'm going to make for the empanadas. We're going to have extra, but the last time that we made these, with the extra, we made some cilantro lime rice, and then we put this mixture over the top and made some burrito bowls with it. You could also put this mixture in just regular tacos, so there's a lot you could do with it. If you do want to scale it up, it just decreases your prep the next time you have to make a meal. Alright, so I've got 1.5 pounds of ground beef in our skillet, and we're going to brown that at medium heat, and Ryan's going to be working on that for us. To that mixture, we're also going to add some salt and some cumin, and we're going to stir that in. And then we're also going to add some minced garlic. I've had a hard time finding garlic at the grocery store lately. It's been sold out along with a lot of other things. So if you run into that, you can get some minced garlic in a jar. They sell that there as well. So not what I prefer to do, but it works. So it's already minced up for us. So we'll add that in. And then our recipe calls for tomato paste. They have also been out of tomato paste at the grocery store. So I have some tomatoes that I had frozen in the freezer from our garden from last year. And so I just have roughly the amount that I would need of the tomato paste that we're going to add in as well. So Ryan's going to work on getting that cooked. I'm also going to start cutting up an onion to go in it as well. Alright, so you just want to make sure that you're using a good knife at home, that you're still using a cutting board. We're still going to practice our safe knife handling, so we're going to have a thumb on one side of the blade, our first finger curled on the other side of the blade. This hand is going to be in a claw, and we're going to start, we have the top of the onion and then the root of the onion. We're going to cut both of those off to start with. And then I'm going to put one of the flat parts down, and we're going to cut it in half end to end. And then we're going to peel the outer part of the onion, that papery part. We want to make sure we get that off. It's a lot easier if you just wait and do it at this point instead of trying to peel it off as a whole onion. And then we're going to throw our paper stuff away so our work area stays nice and clean. Alright, we just want this to be minced up for this recipe. So I'm going to turn the onion. I'm going to keep my hand in a claw position. The onions are going to have little lines that you're going to see on it, and I'm just going to use that. I'm going to cut basically on each of those lines, going all the way around the onion, keeping my hand in a claw. And then if you notice, I'm not cutting the top 1/4 inch or so of the onion. That's going to be to help hold it all together, so I don't have to worry about it falling apart while I'm cutting it. And then I can run my knife through it again, and then that's going to be a nice small dice for us and ready to go into our ground beef. So as soon as I get that cut up, I'm going to go ahead and add that in. We'll go ahead and add that part just so our board stays clean. And if you're doing a smaller batch of this than what I am, you probably won't need the whole onion. 1/4 or 1/2 of an onion would be fine. Our recipe actually called for a shallot, which is just a little small onion. You could try that too. They sell them at the grocery store. It's normally over by the garlic, but a regular onion works just fine. And then I just run my knife through that top 1/4 inch to just get the rest of that cut up. Alright, so we're going to let Ryan keep cooking that until our beef gets cooked and gets nice and browned. If we were to take a temperature on that, since it's a ground meat, we would want to make sure it goes to 155 to make sure we're cooking that all the way. The other 2 parts that we need for the filling on this recipe is some cheese. Our recipe called for Monterey Jack cheese. We don't have any of that at our house right now, so we're going to use some sharp cheddar. That works great too. I think that's what we used the last time we made it. And then we need some cilantro to go in it once the beef mixture cools off as well. So this is a whole bunch of cilantro. I washed it and it's been sitting there drying off, so it's not so wet anymore. And I'm just going to run my knife through the top part of that. I really like cilantro, so I normally always put extra in from whatever the recipe calls for. But you can go with what the recipe says. What I'm going to do is just go through. I don't have to do this to all of it, but some of these thicker stems, everything is edible from the cilantro, but some of the thicker stems just aren't as pleasant to eat. So we're going to pull just a few of those out here really quick. And then I'm going to run my knife through the cilantro just to break it up a little bit. And then I'm going to put that in with my cheddar cheese, and we're just going to keep that in the refrigerator until our ground beef mixture cools down. If we add the cilantro and the cheese to the beef while it's still hot, then it will melt the cheese and it'll start to wilt the cilantro. So we'll wait till that cools off, but we can go ahead and get that prepped. Alright, so we've got most of the big ones. Like I said, it's all edible, but just a little bit more appealing if you don't have those big stems in it. Alright, so I'm just going to ball all of that up on my cutting board. Again, I'm going to keep a claw hand, hold my knife correctly, and I'm just going to rock my knife through. If you want to move this hand out of the way, just make sure you keep it flat on top so that way your fingers don't find their way underneath of the knife. We don't want to cut these up too much because we don't want to bruise the cilantro, but you'll know you bruised it if you start getting really dark pieces with it. So we just want to run our knife through a couple times to break that up. And that looks good. So I'm going to just add that to my cheese so it's ready to go when I need it. And we just need to finish cooking our ground beef. Okay, Ryan's ground beef mixture just got finished cooking. There's no more pink in it anymore. The onions have softened up. So we're going to go ahead and turn our stovetop off. And then I just want to transfer that to a bowl that can go into the refrigerator. We want to let this mixture chill down all the way before we add in our cheese and our cilantro, and before we add that into our pie crust to make our empanadas. So we're going to get this put away, and then we're going to make our pie crust, and then we'll be ready to start assembling them. Alright, so while our beef is chilling and cooling off, we're going to work on the pie crust. And do you remember what kind of pie crust you're making?
3, 2, 1
Yep.
pie crust.
We're making the 3, 2, 1 pie crust just like we made in the Pop Tart video. And in that video we went through a little bit more detail. We went through a little bit more detail on how to make it. This time we're going a little bit faster. Oh, here, no, that wasn't zero yet. So we're using the scale. We're going to do 9 ounces of flour. And the recipe, you'll see the cup measurement as well if you don't have a scale. And Adeline also just got our butter grated. We're going to use all butter this time. If you remember last time we used half shortening, half butter, and we talked about why we might want to do that, but this time we're going to try all butter. So Adeline just got that grated for us. So she gets 9 ounces of flour in there. We're going to add a little bit of salt, so half a teaspoon of salt to it. And we're going to stir that up, and then we'll be ready to get our butter put in. So she already has her butter grated, so it's pretty much the size that we want, but we're going to use a pastry blender just to make sure that that gets into the flour before we add our water. So we don't want to cut this in too much. If you remember, if you don't have a pastry blender, you can use a fork or 2 forks. Okay, stop it real quick. All right, Adeline just finished getting that butter cut in just a little bit more with the pastry blender, and we've got 3 fluid ounces of cold water that we're going to pour in, and then get that stirred up to where it all comes together into a ball of dough. Okay, stop it.
It's going.
If you don't have either of those, you can also just drop it in clear wrap, smash it down into a disc, and then you just will need a little bit more flour when you go to roll it out after it's been chilled. Okay, stop it. All right, both of our pie crusts are rolled out to 1/8 of an inch thick, so remember those should fill up pretty much both of those bags. So those are both ready to get chilled. Again, we can put that in the refrigerator for a while. Our beef is still cooling, so that would probably be fine. If you're in a hurry, you could do it in the freezer for just a few minutes. But we do need that to chill all the way down before we're ready to start shaping. And we've got all of our stuff prepped, so here in just a little bit we'll come back and we'll start making our empanadas. Okay, all of our stuff is chilled down. Our dough has been chilled, so we're going to get that cut out. So we're going to get just a little bit of flour cut on our surface, and then we're going to turn out that dough. And then we want to cut these out in, we want to cut these out into just a little under 4 inches, or 4 inches is fine. So we're using a lid to a mason jar for canning. That's about the right size. If you don't have one of those, you can find a glass that has a big enough top on it. That would work too. But we want to get as many of these cut out as what we can. And then we're going to transfer those to a sheet pan. You may need to put them back in the fridge for a minute depending on how long it takes you to do this part. So that way they stay nice and cold for you. Once you get all of the cutouts that first go around that you can, then you can start piecing it back together. You can re-roll as needed. We've still got this other batch to do here as well. So we're going to get all of these going, and then we're going to be ready to fill them up. Then we're going to get all of our scraps together, and we'll just re-roll those. you can just keep going until you've used up all of your dough. Since we made extra filling, we could have made double the amount of dough and made double the amount of empanadas, or we could save our extra filling for another day and make them fresh and make new dough on another day. We could also use it to make burrito bowls or the tacos that we talked about earlier. It would also go really well on nachos if you wanted to make homemade nachos. That meat would go really well on it. So, lots of uses for it. Now we're ready to combine our filling. This was our beef mixture that's been cooled off. This is our cheese and our cilantro. And I'm just going to put this in a bigger bowl so it's a little bit easier to stir, but we're going to combine all of this together. And this is going to be our filling. And then we're going to start adding a tablespoon of the filling to each of our little circles that we just cut out, and then we're going to get those sealed up, and that's going to be our empanadas. So that's stirred, we're ready to go. So what Adam's going to help me with, get a few of these laid out here. Let me grab a fork. Okay, so we're just going to take a tablespoon. We don't want to put too much in these, otherwise we're not going to be able to get them closed and seal them. So just put a tablespoon right in the middle. And then what we're going to do is fold those in half and seal them together. I'm just going to pinch it first. If you find out you put too much filling in, just take a little bit out, but we want to be able to seal those up. And then we're going to go in with a fork and we're going to crimp the edges to make sure that that seal holds really nicely. Just a minute. Then our last step, we have all those ready to go. They're all crimped. Our last step is we're just going to take some pastry brushes and we're just going to lightly brush the tops of all of these with a little bit of olive oil. Just to help make sure they get nice and brown. And then we're going to put these in the oven. And we're going to bake them until that pie crust gets done and is nice and golden brown. Okay, so we have our oil brushed on them, ovens at 425. We're going to put those in the middle rack for 18 to 22 minutes. We'll start checking a little bit before that. Remember, all the ovens are a little bit different, but we're just looking for that really nice golden brown coloring on the pie crust. Okay, our empanadas just came out of the oven. We ended up baking them for 22 minutes, just to make sure they got a little bit darker coloring. What you really want to look for, remember, is on the bottom. Make sure the bottom gets a nice golden coloring with it. We want to make sure we turn our oven off, and those all look great. So now it's time to give them a try. Turn off. It's still hot.
It's really delicious and flaky and crispy and golden. I love the flavor of the meat and cheese.
So does it get a thumbs up?
I give it 1,000 thumbs up.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed the second way we showed you to use the 3-2-1 pie crust, and if you've gotten to make both of these this week, the Pop-Tarts and the empanadas, that you are feeling a little bit more comfortable using that pie crust. Hopefully you can see too that there's so many variations of how you can do that. I mean, you essentially made the same thing. One was just sweet and one was savory. So the possibilities are endless of what you can put inside of the empanadas as a savory dish, in addition to your pies, essentially, that you made with the Pop Tarts. So looking forward to seeing what you guys make and hearing from you soon.